So, the Simplified Finance Investment Seminar, where we give you all the tips and tricks you need to build wealth through property. We all do it in a fun and supportive environment. And on top of that, we'll have a particular focus tonight. Tonight we'll be having the lens of rentvesting. As affordability continues to be a challenge, particularly in the capital cities, people are still looking for alternative ways to invest in property while making sure that they're not severely impacting their lifestyle. My name is Mark, and along with Fabio, who is around somewhere, we co-founded Simplify Finance. Over the last 9 years, we've built the best mortgage broking team in Australia and have helped over 2,000 clients purchase their dream property, refinance to save on interest, and also build wealth through property. I was watching the Formula One over the weekend, and as I saw these amazing modern mechanical cars zip through the racetrack, I sort of thought to myself, what a great analogy for property investment. If you're in the driver's seat, when you make a decision, you need to be really decisive. While speed is important, what's more important is to minimize risk because you need to finish the race. And finally, like any world champion would tell you, the only way that you can get to the podium is if you surround yourself with a world-class team. And that's exactly what we have presented for you today. We have some of Australia's leading property experts for you. First of all, Gab from MA Money, one of Australia's largest non-bank lenders. We have Felicity, look at the order. Felicity there, from Your Move Conveyancing, the best conveyancing practice in New South Wales. We've got Amy, Private Wealth Solutions, who is an expert in navigating the complex field of tax and property. And finally, Linton, who over 20 years has built the best buyers agency in Australia. At the end of the presentations, we'll do a deep dive into 2 case studies to see how each of these experts would approach it. And we'll end the formalities with a Q&A to make sure that you have any questions or any of your questions ready. And we'll end the night with some drinks and a bit of networking to make sure that if there were any presenters that you want to speak to more, you can certainly have access to them. Without any further ado, I pass over to Gab from MA Money.
So I'm Gab, Head of Partnerships for MA Money. The reason I'm here today is really just to talk about demystifying the risk to maximise your borrowing capacity. Okay, I really like, I'm obviously presenting on behalf of MA Money, but the whole premise of me being here is to really talk about non-bank lenders in general. There is still a little bit of stigma out there in the world, and I think it's really important that consumers are aware of our place in the market. So for us specifically, we're a non-bank lender. What does that mean? So let's keep it really simple. It's a Simplify Finance event, so I'll keep it as simple as possible. Effectively, we have banks, as you're all aware, we have non-banks and we have private lenders. A lot of the times there's a bit of confusions between non-bank and private sector. So I guess a fun fact for those who may not be aware, our funding is actually through the major banks. So a lot of people may think, oh, non-bank, it sounds a bit scary. Where is your money coming from? How do you sort of review risk? So we actually get funding from all the major banks. Every non-bank is different. Some may have access to Westpac and CBA, some may have access to all 4. We're in a really great position that we have access to all 4. So what does that mean for you essentially is our funding is quite strong. It's backed by the banks. And it's actually regulated by ASIC. So again, very safe. What's really important to mention here is essentially, whilst that is the way our funding works, we have the ability to design credit and policy the way that we like. So to make that really simple for you is we don't need to align ourselves with the bank. So the bank may look at your position in one way, we look at it very differently. And the way that we like to look at it is we fill that void that the bank's left behind. So we like to look at you in a unique way. We look at your assets, we look at your liabilities, and we think, okay, what's the maximum we can offer you, whether that's from a borrowing capacity, or how do we look at you a little bit more commercially to someone else. So again, it's not a one-size-fits-all approach, and that's why non-banks play a really important role in the market, particularly in today's lending environment. We're still on the slide 1. Sorry. So what's overarching to that is we're owned by a company called MA Financial, and MA Financial are an ASX listed 300 company. So again, just further instilling the confidence in who you're working with and who you're dealing with. We have actually a $9.9 billion asset book, which actually means that we've lent over $9 billion worth of funding. So again, if you really start to think deeply into that and reverse engineer it, you're dealing with quite a significant player in the market. So it's not this kind of little non-bank lender, what's happening with my money, who's giving me money. We've got a very large focus in asset lending. And again, given the fact that we're regulated by ASIC, everything is done a certain way. And like I spoke about before, we are adaptable to looking at clients in a tailored way. So everyone has a unique set of circumstances, but we're here today to talk about maximising servicing. And the way we do that, next slide, is looking at income differently to the banks in a lot of ways. One of the main ways is if you're pay-as-you-go, so you're employed by someone, we look at income very different to the banks. So first thing that we do is a main one is short-term employment. So if you're on probation, if you've had multiple jobs in a short amount of time, you've not been there for a fixed amount of time, we will still utilise 100% of your income. The biggest thing is the utilisation of casual income. So to break that down, a lot of the banks will only use a portion of supplementary income. And when I say supplementary, I'm talking about people who are casual, those who utilise bonus and commission income, those who may actually only be commission based. They're actually of a disadvantage when working with a bank because they actually reduce the amount of income that they can take for the purpose of servicing a loan. So we actually use 100% of all the income, whether you're casual, overtime, bonus or commission. So we actually maximise all of that. If you're self-employed, we have two ways to verify your income. One of the ways is fully verified. Fully verified effectively means you give us your tax returns. So if you're giving us your tax returns, we only are interested in the most recent year. So we're not looking at previous performance. We're really just focused on the last year that you've lodged. And one of our biggest advantages is utilising the full profit without introducing any of your debts. And that may sound pretty common, but it's not. So effectively, most of the banks will actually take your profit, but also say, okay, you may have 4 car loans in the business and a credit card. They're actually going to introduce that into your servicing, which actually further stress tests it and then reduces how much you can actually borrow. That's quite harmful, particularly if Mark was to get a loan with us and he shares his liabilities with Fabio, which there's a lot of in the business. A bank would have to look at that line by line. But if Mark comes to me personally, I'm not interested in the liabilities he has with Fab. I'm interested in just the income he's getting from Simplify Finance, and we can all move on. Self-employed alternate verification. So if Mark's not done his tax returns for multiple reasons, one of the reasons is he's lazy. The other reason may be that he's running a few businesses at once and things are a little bit complex. So he's going to wait until he absolutely has to lodge his tax returns. And by that point, it's actually too late for a lot of lenders to then introduce that income into servicing. So because we don't have the current tax returns, we then say, okay, give us your BAS. So we'll look at your last 2 quarters worth of BAS and we utilise the income based off that. Otherwise, we just get an accountant declaration. So if you're working with an accountant and they say, currently, you're annualising $200,000 a year, even though you don't have the tax returns right now to support that, we will utilise that for our serviceability. So again, that just reinstills the no requirement for current lodged financials. So I hope that's clear. Please ask me if you have any questions at the end. But I think Mark's got a pretty cool example to share, the difference between taking this approach to an everyday consumer versus utilising a bank.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have a look at a real life scenario. And I think sometimes people, they might walk into the bank they've always done their banking with, or they have their existing home loan with. They ask the question of the bank, what can I borrow? And once the banker tells them that number, they sort of think, well, that's it. That's the end of the conversation. But what we're really trying to highlight here is with a non-bank, the significant difference that you can get in borrowing capacity when compared to a bank. So if you look at this particular scenario here, 2 applicants, 120 grand each, PAYG with 1 dependent. home loan there, listed there. They've got a bit of equity, they've got an investment loan as well, and they're currently receiving rental income. So when we sort of look at their scenario, it's really, really interesting to see what a bank can get them to versus what a non-bank can get them to. So if we just go to the next slide. Here you can see the difference between two lenders when we're using the exact same information. So a lender like CBA, and you'll find that a lot of the banks operate in the same space. And when I say bank, you know, CBA, St George, Westpac, Bank West, these are all the sort of majors here. And for that particular scenario that we just had on the previous slide, you're looking at the high 300,000s. But if you go all the way to the top up there, you'll see MA Money. Obviously, I can't reach. If you had someone taller, they might be able to, but 736. So again, just to stress the difference in the number, which is nearly double between comparing a bank versus a non-bank. What we're seeing here, and I think it's really interesting for the exact same scenario, and I think when we have Linton, when you speak later in the piece, the difference between the quality of a property that you'd get at that sort of 730 mark versus the quality of a property that you'd get at that 395 mark, this is drastically different. So if you're able to get a more quality property, it's going to help build your property portfolio and really increase your wealth strategy long term. Something that I think is really important to highlight is you'll see there that the estimated rate, 7.19 versus 6.49, yes, a bank will give you a lower rate, but again, if you take the commercial view of it as you build a property portfolio, is it worth paying that little bit extra in rate to make sure that you secure a more blue chip property that's going to grow exponentially more over time? So I'll sort of leave you with that sort of thought. Gab, thank you so much for that presentation.
Great, I'm glad that we're number one and quickly, otherwise
That's
this
it.
would have been awkward. Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Off the back of what Mark said, I'm a big F1 fan, and it really is key having the right team around you. I actually listened to a podcast last night with James, who's the team principal at Williams, and he is incredibly great at what he does, and really his ethos is all around the people and culture that you build within your team, and that's something that your Move Conveyancing, and for you as investors, is also really important, that you are building the team that you want to support you. So just looking at some of the investor challenges that come around, in particular, slow turnaround times. So it's, whilst you want to work at a fast pace and a quick pace, it's important that we're working at the speed with you. And sometimes you're working with providers that aren't getting back to you within the day. We are always getting back to you within the day, if not with a resolve, at least with acknowledgement, and the resolve to come soon after. Another investor challenge, only available during business hours. Some people, providers are only working 9 to 5. You'll find that some solicitors often taking lunch breaks and not available during that time. Fee presentations, they can often be ambiguous. You're unsure what the end cost will be for your legal representation. There's a lack of understanding of complex ownership structures, purchasing companies, trusts, SMSF, misunderstanding of personal needs, which I think is really important in today's day and age, because everybody has their own scenarios and own circumstances, and it's really important for your practitioner to understand you and be able to deliver something that's tailored to you. Inefficient systems, you'll find that some practitioners are operating still in paper. They're not leaning into the advantages of automation and even AI to help enable them to provide you a greater tailored approach. We in particular see them as efficiency tools rather than anything that's taking away our purpose. We're really leaning into the fact that they can help us give you guys, our clients, more time. And poor communication. So again, looking at that misunderstanding of personal needs and miscommunication in the way instructions are sent via email or even over the phone. We also the conveyancing industry, it's very oversaturated with single
one-man band operators, and when you are at your time of need and you need response, it's important that you have, a network of people that you can rely on to get the information that you need. So in particular, the YMC Way, I know, we are specifically focused in New South Wales, but working with all the partners here today, it is really important that you have those that you trust. And, we all have our own individual, team approaches to how we deliver things, but working together in synergy to meet your needs is super important. Our YMC Way, we offer complimentary contract reviews, and that can happen within 2 hours if you've got offer and acceptance. So we will get that contract reviewed for you, provide a succinct summary, and can provide recommendations of any amendment requests that we can send through to the other side. We also offer complimentary contract preparation when you choose to sell. We have after hours email and phone support. So very commonly things, crucial parts of the deal will come together outside of normal business hours. So we are absolutely there for you. We have, an office line that you can phone that's monitored, as well as, the conveyancing team and your dedicated conveyancer will be there for you as well. Our fees are a fixed fee, so it's not contingent on time. We set just a standard conveyancing fee for whatever type of transaction you are engaging us for, and that's all you'll pay in terms of legal representation. And nothing's payable until you're committed. So per our complimentary services, if there's a property you're going for and for whatever reason you miss out, no fees are payable. Only once you exchange on that property do our fees become payable, and then they're billed at settlement. And we have really secure and streamlined systems. So as I mentioned, we've really lent into the automation in terms of making sure prompts are happening. Our workflows, our systems, they're all secured. So, cybersecurity is a big thing for us, and we want to make sure your data is protected as well. We have a large experienced team, so we've got a team of 12 conveyancers on board with us, and we are looking to grow that absolutely, and really building a team that are there for high performance and to deliver a really customised experience and understanding your needs as our clients. One of our key hiring behaviours that we're looking for is high EQ, so emotional intelligence, really understanding our clients, what they need, what they want, how they want to be communicated with, and their particular situation as well. Leaning more on that, communication that suits you. Some people, just want everything done by emails. We're totally fine with that. If you need phone calls, we can also support that. Text messages, whatever it is, we want to make sure that it's the best experience for you, so we can really help with that. And conveyancing is all that we do. So you may find engaging solicitors, they will be distracted by other litigation or other, wills, estates and whatnot, but we are 100% focused on conveyancing, and we are the best at it. And as I mentioned, for our team, our core beliefs and behaviours are really, really important for us, and that is within us, and it radiates out to our clients. And the feedback we receive, it's really a testament to the great team that our director Dave has built, and what we really try and deliver for everybody. And there they are there. So these are just a couple of testimonials, obviously a bit hard to read, but I'm sure we can send them out post-event. David there on the left, he has been using Your Move Conveyancing since 2018, and he's bought 3 properties and sold 1. And then Jeff, he has bought 3 and sold 3. He's also referred us to many people in his family, so these are 2 really great clients that, from their testimonials, really highlights what we want to achieve in supporting our clients. Just some of our highlights in terms of results. You can keep pressing the next button so they're all there. So we are the largest licensed conveyancing firm in New South Wales. There are, the solicitors that support bigger teams, but we are 100% conveyancing and the largest licensed conveyancing firm in New South Wales. We have a client NPS score of 98.25, which we're super proud of, and that's off the back of feedback forms that come through to us after every transaction. We've got over 300 5-star Google reviews. The fastest purchase we've ever done was 4.5 hours, and that's from review to exchange, so we can move really quickly as needed. Our fastest sale was 24 hours, and that was contract prep through to exchange. Shortest settlement, 48 hours, and that included finance. Really fun story in that one. It was the 29th of December one year, and the renter of a property was off, the owner of the property said that the renter could purchase the property if he got it done within the year, because he didn't want to pay any more land tax. So yeah, we were part of that, and a really successful purchase there. We've also supported over 15,000 clients in over 11 years. And the next one just highlights our lucky door prize, which we will do at the end of the presentation. Thank you so much.
Felicity.
Oh,
Well done.
I just want to reiterate the amazing service that Felicity and her team offer. Real life scenario, client of ours pre-approved, saw the property on a Saturday, fell in love with the property, needed to get the contract reviewed, feedback for the contract by Monday, exchange on Monday, property settles as per normal. And that's the sort of service that you get with your move conveyancing that you would not get anywhere else. It is brilliant, the service they provide. Felicity, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Over to Amy.
Amy. Oh.
Well, hello everyone. Am I understanding? Well, thank you very much for making the time. It is great to meet you all. I assume that no one wants to pay more tax than they have to, unless you really, really want to fund the government coffee break, right? Well, today I want to show you how we help our client to build the right structure that actually saves you some tax, but most importantly, also help you to protect your asset. Next one. So before you start your property investment journey, you need to think about what structure do you want to go ahead and what name do you want to put on your property purchase contract. Do you buy it in the company name, in the trust name, or in your personal names, or in a self-managed super fund? And most people will think about buying the property in their personal names, and it is totally fine, but now I want to ask you a question. How many of you have thought about buying a property in the company name or in a trust name? Hands up if you have already considered. Very good, very good. Thank you for the participation and the feedback. That's very good to see. Well, there's pros and cons in each one of the options. And you need to consider what is your personal roadmap for the next 10 or 20 years before you make that decision. And it's very important that you get the structure right before you actually go ahead, because it can be very expensive to fix in the future. And what you need to consider is that, well, is my structure protecting my wealth? And also importantly, does it have any tax efficiency? And also, what happens if I die? What happens to my asset? And also, does my structure have any flexibility in distributing any income in the group? And many of our clients, they all consider not only their generation, but also multi-generations. How do they pass on wealth into generation? So that's also very important. So today I won't have time to go through all of these factors each by each, but I will go through a real life example to show you how the structure will affect people's decision. So if we can move to the next slide. So this is one of the typical structure that our client work with to build their wealth. And this is all fake names, of course. So Bob and Mary, they have a trading business, and Bob is a director of his trading company. And they actually own a rental property in a separate investment company, which is owned by the discretionary trust and with the corporate trustee in here. And the meaning of a discretionary trust, it means that the trustee of the trust actually have the discretion to distribute any income combination to any beneficiaries, as long as it's allowed by the deed. And it's great asset protection because holding the property in a separate company, as opposed to holding it in Bob and Mary's personal name and trading business, it separates the property with the trading business risk. And also having a corporate trustee separates the asset that's held by the trust with any risk around here that Bob or Mary personally hold from the trading business. And now let's move on to the next slide. I'll show you quickly of how this structure pays tax. So we have the investment property on the top. It's held in the investment company name. It will pay corporate tax at rental income, and it will pay some dividend through to the trust and to the bottom beneficiaries, depending on what is the best efficiency for that particular year. So before 30 June each year, we'll sit down with our clients and have a look at their current year financial situation and decide what is the best income distribution option for them, and makes it very efficient. And the fact that we have a trust in the group structure really provides great flexibility of income distribution among the group. And next, you also, if you do sell the property, you will make a capital gain in the company. And that capital gain gets taxed at 30% in the company lower corporate rate, as compared to if you hold the property in your personal name. If the property is very good, then you might be subject to the top marginal rate if you hold the property in your personal names. And land tax wise is also a very, very important factor to consider. Different states have different land tax requirements and different thresholds. And before you purchase a property, it's very important that you look at what state that you're purchasing, and because different structures will have different land tax. For example, in New South Wales, a company holds a property actually is entitled to a land tax threshold, but a trust is not entitled to any land tax threshold. What it means is that you actually pay land tax, the whole value of that property, land value, is subject to land tax. So I'll give you a context. For example, if you have the property, it's maybe more than 1 million, you could be subject to 17,000 of land tax each year if you hold it in the trust name. So this is why having the right structure can save you up to 17,000 each year in land tax. So it's very important that you get the structure right. And in the case that if the property is a negatively geared property and it makes a rental loss, the company can use that rental loss to offset the other income that the company has. For example, if the company is holding any public shares and has some dividend income, the company actually can use that rental loss to offset other income that the company has. If there's no other income, then the company actually can carry forward the tax loss to future income years until that the property is making a profit. And this structure is very good with flexibility because it's got a discretionary trust. It makes the tax planning each year very good, very tax efficient. And in the event if Bob or Mary, they pass away, they don't need to sell the property. This structure is still likely to continue if Bob and Mary pass away. So it's a very good structure for intergenerational passing on the wealth from one generation to the other. So if we move on to the next one, please. So on conclusion, having a property through a company which is owned by a family trust, it creates really good flexibility in terms of income distribution, and also particularly in New South Wales, it's very land tax efficient, and we do have our own table of which state has different land tax of different structures. If you do need to have that table, come to see us, and we can help you on that. And yeah, so now what is the right structure for you? Well, you need to look at what is your personal roadmap for the next 10 or 20 years, and we'll work with you to help you to design the best structure for you, and then help with your financial success. So if you need any help on property planning, we offer a 30-minute free consultation. Give us a call. We're always happy to help. Thank you, guys.
And I will say, as a trend that we're starting to see, as our investors get more complex, more of them, especially once they have 3 or 4 or more properties, they're starting to consider those other structures. I think as a general journey, what you'd normally find is that first or maybe second property tends to be in your personal name. And as your needs start to get a little bit more complex, the requirement to make sure that you're forward planning equally starts to becoming, more important. So Amy, it's some really great concepts there. Thank you so much. Now over to Linton from Providence Property, who will tell us everything we need to know and what we should be buying and where we should be buying and how we should be buying it.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Mark, Fabio, for the invitation. Providence Property Group. My name's Linton Stevenson, Director and Co-founder of Providence. I started this business back in 2006. So we've been going on almost 20 years now. We've purchased over 3,000 properties nationally and over $2 billion in property purchase. Over 50% of our purchases are off-market or pre-market, and 80% of our clients are investors, 20% owner-occupiers. I started this business because the investment dollar is portable. It can go anywhere in the country to any different asset, and I really wanted to help people buy in each of the capital cities, because within Australia, all the capital cities are decoupled from one another. They all work independently. People from Sydney think Sydney's the greatest market to invest in. Well, Sydney prices are the highest, but they're highest for a reason. It's our first capital city, first state, and obviously you get compounding from that early very point, so it's hard to play catch up. In terms of our investment methodology, this is very high level, but we are very much capital city focused. So we don't do holiday, regional, rural, agricultural, mining areas. We stay well away from them for a very good reason. They're volatile, and a lot of people have short memories and only remember the good times in the property market. But I can assure you there's good and bad times. And capital cities reduce risk. There's a lot less volatility, and when any downturn, you'll get a very sharp bounce in a capital city, typically. Whereas in regional areas, you might get prolonged periods of low to no growth. So for us, it's all about asset protection for our clients. We want our clients to make as much money as quickly as possible, but safely as possible, which leads us into our investment methodology in terms of location. So we are capital city focused. We would look at properties within 65 minutes commute time to a capital city. And we love areas where there's a water element, so close to beaches, rivers, estuaries, lakes, etc. within a capital city. We like areas where it's close to leisure and employment. Transportation's a big thing, especially as our population grows. You need to be close to trains line and transportation. And we also like higher income socioeconomic demographic profiles. So where do people live who have more money? It's not snobbery. Not everyone can afford to go and invest in Vaucluse, but everyone has a budget. So we sort of stretch from the CBD out and find a location where incomes are strong, but it's close to the capital, it's close to the city. In terms of product type, and this is very quick, we like land over building. So When buying a property, I love to buy subdividable blocks, splitter blocks, something that you can carve up and build something else on, but that's not for everyone. Obviously, that's a higher holding cost with that and higher entry costs. But then we'd like a house on a regular block, a townhouse, a 3-bedroom apartment, and a two-bedroom apartment, and a 1-bedroom apartment in that order. I actually, not a fan of 1-bedroom apartments. They're great for cash flow, but not for capital appreciation. So. Next slide, please. The next thing that we look at in terms of investing in property is long-term data sets. So the longer the data set, the more accurate it is. There's a saying in the financial planning world, past performance doesn't equal future performance. But in property, it's actually the opposite. Past performance does equal future performance, because the things that drive property price growth are the things you can't pick up and move. It's the private schools, it's the golf courses, it's being close to employment generators, hospitals, transportation, etc. So these things are really important. So when we look at any property, we look at long-term data sets. In addition to that, market cycle timing is important, supply, demand, vacancy rate, days on market, gross yields all comes into consideration. But if we go to the next slide, this is, you can actually see, it's great. I thought it might have been a bit small. This is some analysis that we look for with a particular client we've got, looking in Melbourne and some suburbs, got a sort of circa $1.6 million budget. So what we like to look at amongst all these things is the 30-year capital growth. Then we overlay that with the 5-year or 10-year capital growth rate. So as you can see here, if the budget was a bit more, St Kilda, where are we? St Kilda West, it's had 8.37% capital growth every year for the last 30 years. Now, most people, I've got to tell you, buy property in areas where they're getting 5, 5.5, 6, maybe 6.5 if they're any good. But you can buy in areas where you're getting 8%. Now, if you had a property, $500,000, and you got 5% growth per annum over 20 years, and you got 1% extra capital growth. So you got 6% instead of 5% over 20 years. It's an additional $300,000. If you get an additional 2% every year for 20 years, it's $811,000, and 3% is $1.3 million additional equity after 20 years. And I've got to tell you, it's really not that difficult to do. The numbers support that. So obviously you see here, this is Melbourne. This is probably why Melbourne will be our next market that we get into. There's a few sort of road bumps to go yet, but looking at sort of these short-term figures, if your suburb has grown 8.34% over the last 20 years, but it's only done 1% in the last 5 years, I can assure you in the next 10 years that suburb will have some double-digit growth. Next slide, please. So the purchase process. So when a client comes to Providence, we sit down, we have a fact-find discussion with the client, understand their needs, objectives, I should say, what they're looking to buy for. Is it yield-driven? Is it obviously capital growth is a primary benefit for engaging our services, but do they need something that might have some tax benefits, cash flow benefits, negative gearing, etc., etc. So we have a detailed discussion with our clients. We provide a property investment analysis report, so we take their income, council rates, water rates, inflation rates, etc., and we'll do a detailed investment analysis before they even enter into a transaction. So we know how much that property is going to cost them to hold pre and post tax before we buy it. We create a purchase brief. The client signs off on the purchase brief. We introduce them to one of our buyer's agents within the capital city that they have chosen to buy in. We establish communication procedures such as a WhatsApp group and a Trello board. We'll go out and start the search process. So we will look at properties, we'll show clients properties that we looked at and rejected and explain why. When we've found the property that we like, we'll provide our clients with 3 reports. A suburb profile report, to tell them why we like the suburb. We'll provide them with a CMA, a comparable market analysis report, to tell them how much we should be paying for the property. And we'll also do a detailed cash flow report based on that particular property. The client gives us the go-ahead, we negotiate, we secure the property, and we get it rented out. Now, wrapping around that, we have a really good ecosystem of partners, and going back to Mark's analogy about the Formula One, which I love and I'll keep, we have a good partner group, ecosystem of partners group, solicitors, conveyancers, pest and building inspectors, builders, all the various different tradespeople, quantity surveyors, etc., etc. So we help the client with managing all that on their behalf. In terms of our search process, we're very rigorous, so it's surprising when people buy a house and median house price in Sydney's $1.5 million, they'll go in and spend 20 minutes there and they'll walk out and they'll buy the property. It's like, I shake my head. With us, what we do is we'll look at the property, we'll do detailed video walkthrough, we'll test all the electricals, garage doors, the cooktop, everything. We will coordinate the pest and building inspections, pool checks, we'll do a development application check, fire and flood check, police check, we'll check the easements on the block, we'll knock on the neighbours' doors, left and right and opposite, to make sure you're not buying a house that's got untoward tenants next door. And I assure you, after doing this for 20 years, we've seen some blocked out blinds in our times in really quality suburbs. So after me spending a few hours in those houses next door, I've come out pretty happy. But nevertheless, we didn't buy those properties. But look, you do get that. And when people buy a home, they'll buy the home, but they won't meet the neighbours. And there's nothing wrong with knocking on the neighbour's door and introducing yourself and saying, what's the neighbourhood like, and that's what we do for our clients. In terms of the time to secure a property with Providence, it's about 42 days on average. The average time for a retail consumer is about 9 months, or 273 days. So what does this mean? If the market's growing 10 or 20% a year, which it has done in Perth and Brisbane and Adelaide over the last 7 years, there's a significant cost saving to being able to reduce that time frame. So next slide, please. So just a couple of, I know I've only got 5 minutes, a couple of testimonials here from some clients. You can have a quick read of that, and there's one following from this next thing. That's just some more client testimonials. In terms of our offer tonight for clients, if anyone wants to use our services, we will give them a $500 discount off our success fee in terms of our buyer's agency fees. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Linton. We've all acquired some amazing knowledge there. I think the best way to learn is to always make sure that we then apply it to a certain case study. So can I invite the panelists to come back up, including Fabio De Castro? How would you sort of build out a plan to see if they could go down the Rentvesting path?
I just want to start by, you never told me you were going to ask me this question, right? Guys, we work together. This is throwing at me by now, but anyway. I am a big believer on rentvesting. I think we had a conversation with Tim the other day, and if you don't mind maybe sharing some of that story. So Tim has 2 boys that are here, and the question was, what do we do? Like Sydney is getting unaffordable. Do we go to a point that we save and then buy an owner-occupied and get that grant from the government and get the discount on stamp duty, or is it best for us to have the boys at home, help them out, get into building a property portfolio, and obviously lose that grant, because in New South Wales, once you buy an investment property, that's gone. And to me, I'm very passionate about the latter. I think the growth that you can have by partnering, obviously, with someone like Linton that can give us the right strategy, and the growth that you're going to have in maybe a property in Brisbane for $650,000, it will be outpace a lot of a 1-bedroom apartment in DY if you're living in the Northern Beaches, right? So for us, it's something dear to my heart, because I've done that my whole life. Everyone asks me why are you renting? I think it took me 15 years to buy my owner occupied. And for me, that's the strategy that works. So when we talk to clients, I think it's really important to, because a lot of times you come with this, a lot of clients come with this myth that if you're renting is dead money, you you have to buy, you have to own your house, you have to, and I actually don't believe that. I think you can live where you want to live, you can enjoy the lifestyle that you want, obviously within reason, because buying property is not easy. If it was, we won't have so many. But I think it is a strategy that I love, and we tend to sort of have that conversation with clients, because sometimes it's just that sounding board of having someone saying, hey, it's okay to rent, because probably your parents are like, it's that money, don't do it. And you'll be surprised with the results that you get with people that rent and then continue to build their portfolio, build the equity over the years, and then get to a point in their 30s or 40s and they're like, okay, now I want my dream home. I can sell a couple of these properties. If you did the right structure, and tax-wise, you're not paying that much tax, but you can sell those properties, use that cash to then obviously get into that dream home. So I think there is merits to rentvesting. I think based on the market that we have at the moment and how Sydney is getting out of hand, it is one of the best strategies out there. That's my 3-minute 2 cent.
Appreciate that. Just in the interest of time, I might go to the next case study. Obviously, I might speak to the other panelists about that one there. So if we sort of put in the lens of someone who's already got a few properties and wants to take their property portfolio to the next level, I might go, Linton, maybe you might go with yourself. So they've got a good base there. They're doing quite well. They might have a little bit of equity. What's the sort of strategy that you would put in place for that next step?
Yeah, well, if we can just take one step back, going back, if they, and I will address people who have a good base, but typically a good base comes from buying core quality assets. So for us at Providence, quality beats quantity. Like, it really does, and I've seen it. You know, I prefer 4 or 5 quality assets than 10 cheap assets. And I've got heaps of case studies where people have come in and wanted a house for $500,000 and they're in areas and they're just getting high vacancies and things like that. So assuming that you've bought the right assets up front, and it really is important to buy those assets up front, because in order to expand your portfolio, you need to have obviously the capital appreciation that you've got from that property. But you'll get to a point where you may have 4 properties. And for us, diversification is so important for this type of strategy. You need one in all the major capital cities. Don't put all your eggs in the basket and buy in Sydney or Melbourne or Brisbane or Perth or Canberra or whatever. Diversification, because land tax comes into play. So you can avoid paying much land tax by obviously diversifying your assets. So as long as you're buying quality assets initially, you will get to a point where you tap out. Like you've got a lot of equity. I mean, to give you an example, what we've done in the past is, from 2011 to 2017, all our clients went to Melbourne and Sydney. Between that time, Melbourne and Sydney grew 82% and 84% respectively. Then in 2017, we said to our Melbourne and Sydney clients, let's get into Brisbane. And we put about 600 clients more into Brisbane. And Brisbane today, 10 years on, has done 90%. Our clients have done well over 100%. And I guess what I'm trying to say here, and I can speak personally for what I bought. I bought 3 properties in Brisbane in 2017. I bought 590, 610. I hope I can share this. 590, 610 and 645, and I've just sold them all in the last 6 months for well over 1.5 to 1.55 million. So within that very short window, I've been able to take that equity and buy further, and I've bought into Perth, etc. So as long as you're buying quality assets, you can go a lot further. And then you'll get to a point where lending gets a bit tough, serviceability, because you've made all this equity, but you don't have the income to support more debt. So then what you can look at is dropping that quality asset, which we would first recommend as a house, to maybe a townhouse or an apartment. 3-bedroom apartments are actually doing quite well at the moment because we're getting an ageing population. So people are selling their houses and buying something that they can live in, low maintenance, that the grandkids can have one room and there's a spare room, etc. But you might have to look at changing your assets. Then there's the option, if you're really stuck for cash, going regional, where you're getting high yields. We don't do regional buying for clients, but that would be the next option. Outside of that, you can buy within a self-managed super fund. I'm not legally allowed to give advice on doing that, but there's an option, okay? And then you can buy another asset that way. And if you bought well on the way in, you might have bought a subdividable block that you carve off and build a house on, so you've expanded your portfolio that way. So, and then obviously if you want to make more money, buying properties, the initial properties that you can renovate, add value to, go up, expand, etc., like that. So that would be my, that's my strategy for expanding your portfolio.
Brilliant, thank you. Very comprehensive answer. I think just in the interest of time, I'm going to move straight into Q&A. So I'll throw it out to the audience. Did you have any questions for any of our panel members? Please do not be shy. Jerry, sorry, at the back. Sorry.
Just forgive me if I have this wrong. Did I hear you correctly when you're saying if you're struggling with serviceability, you would sell potentially, you would assist the client with choosing which high quality estate house to sell to then get a different one? Can you just elaborate?
So you're struggling with cash flow at the moment? Yeah. Look, I don't believe in selling, but unless you have to, and then there's always a time to sell. Like as I just said, I've sold 3, I paid, and a couple of those were in obviously a self-managed super fund paid, so I paid 10% tax, which was made $1 million, paid $100,000 in tax. That's, I think, pretty good. So it's okay to sell property if you need to shuffle things around. I always say to clients, sell bad performing assets. Like if you're not getting 7, 8, 9% return on an asset and you're getting 4 and 5, well, sell it and buy something else, in my opinion.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Linton. Any other questions? Do you have a question at the front? Oh, did it? No one's going to ask the next hotspot? Linton, any suggestions on where some great places to buy? I think you said, Melbourne is pretty good.
Yeah, so we've delivered a few presentations to the banks. One we did with the ANZ Bank, The Economist recently. We follow an 18.6-year property cycle, which some people may have heard or may not, and it's been going on over 450 years in the UK and over 250 years in the US, and the only thing that's upset the cycles have been world wars and, believe it or not, a pandemic. We don't create our own cycle here. We're about 12 months behind the US, but typically how the cycle unfolds is 7 years up, 1.5 to 2 years sideways, 7 years up, and then you have a down period of between 2 and 4 years. So we like to follow this cycle, and how the cycle unfolds here in Sydney is after any sort of land-led recession, the two major capital cities fire first because that's where jobs are. So people sell their regional homes, their holiday homes, their rural homes, and they move into city for job growth. So typically what happens after a land-led recession is rents start, first the stock market increases, and then rents start to increase. So how that unfolded in this cycle that we're currently through is Melbourne and Sydney took the gains from 2011 to 2017. Melbourne and Sydney, as I said, 82% and 84% respectively. Then just before the end of that, Hobart took off. Canberra worked sort of in parallel with Sydney. And then sort of 2018, Brisbane, I'm talking capital city, Brisbane, Adelaide has fired. Then about 3 years ago, we got into Perth. Perth's, getting into Brisbane back then, people said, oh, floods and it rains and property prices never grow. Well, it's been one of the best performing capital cities since then. So Perth is where we've been buying of late. As I said, we bought well over 300 properties now in Perth, and we were buying, back then, 500,000-600,000. They're worth close to $1 million now. And I think Perth will continue to see some good growth. Economically, it's the best performing state. Western Australia is the best performing state in the country. It's got the highest income, so you think people from Sydney earn a lot of money, go to Western Australia. You've got the lowest vacancy rate. You've got some of the highest gross rental yields in the country, so serviceability is easy. Mitsubishi, the Japanese company just bought $5 billion worth of Pilbara land at the moment. So there's a lot of money being invested in our resource sector. So, and it's also the only state in the country that's got a budget surplus. It's about $4.3 billion of budget surplus. Now you go to Victoria and they're in the red, they're in the hole. You know, it's dire. So things have got to change in Victoria, but Victoria will be our next market that we get into. You can either go now and go early and bottom feed, which we're doing at the moment. So, you know, we'll probably put 6 or 7 different offers in property and hopefully one sticks and you get a discount. So I think as long as you know that and you realise that there may not be any major gains to come in Melbourne, initially, it is a good time to potentially get in. Or if you want immediate equity, I'd be looking at Perth for the next couple of years.
Great answer. Any other questions?
That's worth a lot of money right there.
Yeah, I know.